And there we go. Thank you, Silent Mike. Really appreciate it. Hello, everybody. This is our third in a series of public meetings coming back after the formation of the primary group pushing for Calexit. You can find out more information about us at calexitnow.org. That's also where you can donate. If you go to calexitnow.org, there's a donate button on the top right corner, and it'll take you to our GoFundMe and Patreon pages. Additionally, we'll have a PAC webpage coming up very soon, and you can donate directly to that. So please go to calexitnow.org, and in the top right corner, there's the big fat donate button, big bright yellow button, and that'll take you to our official Patreon and official GoFundMe pages. Totally official through those pages, all legit. Um, Money's important in politics. Unfortunately, since Citizens United happened, it changed the game. That's the one that said corporations have unlimited ability to spend money in American politics after American money in politics was already too big a problem. So today, here's the return of JJ Ames. He's our DC insider. We're going to be talking about long-term strategy with JJ. A lot of you were really impressed with JJ, so we had him back. JJ's here on the team. We're trying to bring in even more people. We'll be talking about that. Additionally, we got your questions. We have about, I think, 10 questions from about 10 people. If you have questions, please submit them to marcus@calexitnow.org. That's marcus@calexitnow.org. Marcus, Marcus, at calexitnow.org. We take questions before the show and then we address those questions. So if you have any questions during this show or there's anything you wanted to talk about, marcus@calexitnow.org. Send us the questions. We'll do it for the next show. We will announce future shows coming up very soon. And additionally, donate if you can. Let's go right to JJ. JJ showed up about a month ago. I hadn't met him before, and he had said, you guys don't realize how easy this is and how doable this is, and how I would say desperate situation is for this sort of solution. He's worked for 40 years in Washington, D.C., thereabouts, ran 67 campaigns, has two separate law degrees, working on a PhD or dissertation. Not sure I'm getting that right. Additionally, he teaches political science and he has taken every PAC management class there is. He's also known some of the top political entities out there over time, such as Trump and Biden. And apparently, he knows everybody else. So I just learned he knew John Lovitz, who is one of my favorite comedians. I thought he was the best out of all the SNL cast. No one else did, but I did. He did something where they went to space with parents. And, anyways, JJ, today we want to talk about strategy. We want to talk about things that are planned for the future. I'll mention some of the events that we have planned for the future, and I'd like to talk about your impact. But we also want to talk about long-term strategy, and I want to talk about the PAC. So, um, first things first, in 5 minutes, what would you say is the strategy to achieve independence here at Calexit now, as you've seen it? And how realistic do you think that is given the realities of the ground as we've seen in the last few weeks or few months? Let's start with
All of the people who would say that this is not doable and would challenge the forward movement, they base their claims on the only Supreme Court case within this genre. It was Texas v. White back in the 1860s, and uh, the case really didn't initially stand for any proposition relating to the viability of secession. That case really only went to the issue of could Texas continue to use the federal court system since it had seceded from the Union or attempted to secede from the Union,
right.
and the court said yes, that Texas could use the federal court system, particularly because unilateral withdrawal of a state from the Union would be unconstitutional. So right now, we have avenues that we can go down, and one of those, of course, is putting the ballot initiative, putting the initiative on the ballot, actually, Uh, Next is through the use of a resolution in the General Assembly permitting again authority or the ability to explore these legitimate ways of separation. And then lastly would be the creation of a blue ribbon commission. California has many blue ribbon commissions at this point. This would simply be another one where the General Assembly would be directing the commission to come back to them with reports on what is and is not viable in terms of an opportunity to withdraw. From our perspective, we really have been given the gift that keeps on giving in the case of Trump being reelected, because every day that he says something or does something that implies that more and more and more powers that were within the purview of states are being brought into to the federal government, and not just being brought into the federal government, but being brought into a DC which looks nothing like the DC that existed even 10 years ago, because you now have the president federalizing DC police, bringing in National Guard, and all in my belief is that when he didn't want to leave the White House in 2001, the only thing standing between him and the people who would remove him was the White House fence. By federalizing the DC police, by calling in the National Guard, and asking the Congress to extend his ability to manage the DC police from 30 days to perpetuity. That sets up what I believe is the next step in their plan, and that is to ask the Congress to revoke DC's home rule charter. If DC's home rule charter gets revoked, then Trump is not only the president of the United States, but also effectively the mayor of Washington. And this time, if he doesn't want to leave, he could very easily put a National Guard tank on the D.C. side of all of the bridges that come in to D.C. from Virginia, and line the Maryland border. With the actual National Guard troops or National Guard troops and police, whatever he has under his control. So I have always thought that there had to be some plan in his mind to take into account the fact that it would have been relatively easy to remove him in 2021, but with these takeover efforts, it's I don't think it would be quite as easy to remove him, and I think that's the direction that he's going in. But from our perspective, what all of that does is it gives us the ability to say, hey, he sent troops to Los Angeles. He's taken over Washington, D.C. Who's next? Is he going to
Right.
take over the capital? Is he going to seek to take over the state of California by surrounding, the California Capitol building with tanks? Who knows? Nobody knows anything at this stage of the game. And the only thing that we do know is that there was never a better time to move or a more necessary time to move in this direction. After the fires, of course, he already said, I may give disaster relief to California. I may not. California doesn't really like me. I don't really like them. And all of this points to the larger question, and it gets into the redistricting issue too. If any one of us stands on the street corner and starts screaming about how bad the government is, that's one individual in one location challenging the institutions of government. When Trump says things about you can't trust the FBI, you can't trust the courts, you can't trust this one, you can't trust that one, that's the president of the United States attacking the core institutions of democracy, which is bad enough. But what the redistricting issue, what that whole question begins to force consideration, is that now you have state legislatures and governors who are institutions in and of themselves, attacking the institutions of government. So you have it starts out with the individual attacking the institutions, then one elected official happens to be the president attacking the institutions. Now the institutions are attacking themselves. That is the point where democracy breaks down. That's the point where democracy becomes no longer viable, because you already hear people saying, well, when the Democrats get in, they're going to change everything back. And of course, the Republicans will say, well, when the Republicans get in, we're going to change everything back. And all that means is that there's no certainty within the political process whatsoever. And with no certainty in the political process, that starts to affect the economy in ways that you can't imagine. Because if Wall Street can't be confident that policies are going to stay in place and remain in place for any great length of time, if the financial world shuts down. The financial world lives on stability. So all of these, say that because to indicate that all of these factors that would be necessary to exist if we were going to be able to be successful, they now exist. When once you reach the point where Abbott comes out and says, "I'm going to redistrict," and Gavin Newsom says, "Well, then I'm going to do it," and then Mike DeWine in Ohio says, "Well, then I'm going to do it," and then Pritzker in Illinois says, "We'll do it too." I mean, we could the legal principle that all relying on here is that the Constitution doesn't actually require redistricting every 10 years. It requires a new census every 10 years, and we've traditionally used the census to redistrict, but there's no real law stopping anybody from redistricting at any given time. So, you could end up with a perpetual redistricting circumstances I won't say all 50 states, but in 25 or 30 states. And again, what that does for us is we offer the stabilizing force. We offer the stability in the form of taking California, separating it from the rest of the United States, serving as a sovereign nation, and offering to all of the people who have been searching for stability for the last 10 years, we're offering that on day one. So that's kind of where we are, and that's the direction I see. The direction I see is that we hard and fast get the signature campaign underway. I don't think, with Marines in Los Angeles and National Guard in Los Angeles and National Guard in D.C., I told Marcus when the National Guard moved into D.C., I think that we could get 1.5 million signatures in a week. And there was probably never another time in California history where that could have been accomplished. But I think it can be accomplished now because the bad news is Trump can't go a day without being on television 10 times and saying 10 stupid things. But the good news is every one of those stupid things puts 50 more voters in our pocket. Because some group is going to be affected that will, in the immediate sense, lash out and say, "Give me the damn card, I'll sign it," and, and
Yeah.
that's that. So I think that we're as 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 visionary, I should say, as visionary as this movement was when it began. Now the other karmatic forces are falling into place, and it puts us in a position where, again, the right team managing the message, staying on the message, and delivering the message. I think I think that they will end up on the other side being very surprised at how ready, willing, and able Californians are to accept this concept now.
And JJ showed up a month ago. Again, never met him before. He was using all the same material. He was saying a lot of the same talking points. He was saying some of the same reasonings. He had the same concern about the future of the country. He had the same belief that bad things may be coming and it'd be best to get out of Dodge. And he said, "You don't realize how doable this is." And he had the experience. I mean, that was the things that I've been a supporter in saying that we could do this, but I don't have 4 decades of experience in DC. I've never met Biden and Trump. I've never worked for FEMA. I've never ran campaigns, taught it. And then for you to come out of nowhere, manna from heaven, so to speak,
Well,
and then have the
uh,
same points.
yeah, I just say that I've been here. I've been at the University of Oklahoma now for 4 years, coming up on the fifth year now, and I when I left DC in 2020 or early 2021, I could very easily have just retired at that stage of the game. And many of my colleagues were retiring, and many other colleagues thought that I was crazy for not retiring. But the point is, I, I'm a student of history in a sense as well. And for those of you who don't know, in the first Civil War, the number of American dead was right around 560 some thousand, and that's more dead than in every other war we've ever been in combined. Of course, because both the shooter and the victim were essentially Americans. But that was at a time, other than the Gatling gun, that was at a time when it still took maybe a half a minute or so to fire a single shot. Now we have rounds that, or we have weapons that fire anywhere from 600 to 6,000 rounds a minute. So I asked myself, how many more people will perish in a Civil War 2.0 in a country where we have 330 plus million people and 480 million guns, registered guns. And of those 480 million registered guns, 45 million are either automatic or capable of readily convertible automatic for under $100. And so I have to ask myself, how many more would perish in a civil war in 2025 or 2026? And I just couldn't sit back and not do anything. If we don't do anything at all, we all know how this chapter of the book ends. It ends in violent armed conflict. Uh, I much prefer the peaceful route. So our hope here is that we'll get on the either we'll pursue the resolution and the Blue Ribbon Commission and the ballot issue at the same time, and we certainly will do that. But the ballot question, since there will have to be some form of mutual agreement, some sort of negotiated departure from the United States, we want to bring in with us the strongest and most powerful leverage point that we possibly can. And it's nice if the General Assembly adopts a resolution. It's nice if the Blue Ribbon Commission is impaneled, but it will be a lot nicer if we were to be able to pull off a 70-30 electoral victory. After a 70-30 electoral victory, we're walking in there saying, hey, proof is in the pudding. Three-quarters of Californians want out. Now we're here. Let's sit down. We'll figure out all of the nuts and bolts and go from there. And there will be a lot of pressure on Washington to refuse that, but there'll be a lot of pressure on Washington from within the Republican base to go along with that, which is the reason why I think that we will begin pursuing fundraising efforts in Alabama and Mississippi and West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee with commercials that a super PAC could run on our behalf that essentially styles itself as let's get the hell rid of California. Look at all the things California has screwed up in Mississippi and Alabama. Let's get rid of California. And so we'll be able to kind of play both sides of that fence in order to raise the $330 million that I've budgeted this campaign at. So I wanted to get most of that out, but I'll turn it back to you for a second, Marcus.
Let me summarize just for everybody following along. So
Yeah.
I was asking the expert, um, why do we think now's the best time for Calexit to happen, and what actions will it take to make it happen? So this is key for everybody here. Why is Calexit now likely, and what are the key actions that we're looking at, the group, the movement, uh, and this expert to make it happen? So just to summarize, Donald Trump has decided to basically take over Washington, D.C. I know I'm summarizing, but basically he's taken over the D.C. area, D.C. police to some extent, and has managed to make it under his control. Um, that will allow him to basically be in charge of the whole city. So next time January 6th happens, there will be nobody who can get in his way. Secondly, Donald Trump decided to send in combat trained Marines to deal with the domestic protest. He also said there are angry Marines on public before he sent them to address an American population who was just protesting. Additionally, Pete Hegseth, who's the Secretary of Defense, also tweeted out that he supported Trump sending in the Marines. I remind everybody, Pete Hegseth was the guy who said, I will not answer the question when asked, will you gun down protesters? So put this together. Secretary of Defense won't answer the question on will I gun down protesters, and then immediately backs up the president on let's send guys who are trained for the most violent combat situations in to deal with the domestic protest. Okay? Put that together. This comes a few months after there was the disaster at Palisades and Eaton with Californians dead, charred bodies on the ground. People literally saw their loved ones die in front of them and they were homeless, destitute, beside themselves, lowest point ever. And Donald Trump says to them publicly, I'm not sure it went help because I'm not sure I like you guys. And that comes only 8 months after the LA Times survey. And I can't believe the number of people who don't know this. LA Times widely covered this, but I think it's just so horrible. 48% of all Republicans across all 50 states view all Californians as un-American. Now you put that together. Why are you sending foreign combat trained troops against us? Why are you denying disaster assistance? Well, because I don't view them as fellow Americans. And the key for me is that there was no Republican protestation when Trump sent in the Marines or when he was going to deny disaster assistance. There was literally nobody in the Republican Party who said you can't treat fellow Americans that way. So that's all the reasons why things are bad. I'd also add on to that something JJ pointed out to me. Trump's looking at deploying the National Guard again against the will of the people of California and having it in LA for the Olympics so that he could basically have an occupied town. This is also on top of the fact that Trump sent the National Guard against the public, against the will of the governor himself, and then threatened to arrest the governor, and then had his goons throw down the first Latino senator to the ground from California like it was nothing, and then had his vice president get that Latin man's name wrong and then joke about it as if it was funny. Now, that says a climate of instability. I think we'd agree. And that says a climate of hate towards California. So I think what you're saying now is Californians can finally see that the American experiment is not stable and that it's coming down really hard on us. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And one point to add that
Please.
it- Trump simply can't help himself. And I say this, he can't stop himself. He has absolutely no filter. I mean, up to and including sending yesterday, sending the ICE guys to conduct a raid right directly outside of Newsom's press
Oh,
conference.
that's right.
Yeah. So the thing is that as a society, we tend to see something and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that. Oh my God, I can't believe the next one. Oh my God, I can't believe the next one." And then the big catastrophe occurs, and the same people who were oh my Godding all along the way, now their mantra now is, "Boy, I wish I would have seen this coming." So we're in a situation right now where all of the signs are there. This particular democracy cannot survive. It's irretrievably broken. And when the Gallup poll regarding Californians not being considered Americans, that just highlights everything that I've been saying. You have governors now we're no longer afraid to be out of control because the president's out of control. So you have a guy in the White House with 34 felony convictions calls up the governor in Texas who the governor that same governor who had already put razor wire in the Rio Grande to catch people coming across the river, and he tells him he needs more seats. My feeling is this: if and I had this conversation with a professor in Texas last night, if you're talking about the guy in the White House and, for example, the guy who put the barbed wire in the river, uh, does anyone think that ICE people won't be stationed outside polling places in Texas? Does anybody think that ICE people won't be stationed outside of polling places in California, and most certainly polling places in all seven swing states? So we have to have vision. We have to be able to look beyond what the rest of the world can see and then act upon it. If you can see the forest, that's great. If you can see the forest and the trees, that's great too. But if you can't see what lies beyond, then you're going to find yourself in a deep hole with no way out. So my feeling at this point is that Trump has done enough already to show even an unsophisticated elector that we're at the end of the rainbow, that the American experiment is over. I mean, never before, without. I mean, I know that troops were sent to the University of Alabama when George Wallace gave his famous segregation speech, but that's 60 years ago now. So today we have to look at the way things have evolved in the political process, the way they've evolved the way that they've evolved in the political system, and essentially the way that they've evolved in our society as a whole. More people are more likely today to be involved in a violent overthrow than in a peaceful separation. So that's where we're coming. We want to be that stabilizing force that operates perhaps even as a trendsetter in connection with some other states who may be considering the same move.
And just to we're going to get right to what's the next steps to do this, but just to add on to what you're saying, that on top of all the instability and scary actions, I mean, no president has ever sent Marines in on a domestic protest. No president has ever publicly said, I'll deny disaster assistance, ever. So, and then you see the other instability already going on with Trump. And then, as you're saying, now they're doing gerrymandering. So, Texas decided they were going to gerrymander after Trump said, get me 5 more votes. That's not in dispute. So, I remember just a few years ago when he went called someone in Georgia and said, find me a few votes, and everybody was rightfully upset about that. Now he says, get me a few more seats for this election. And it's like, okay, right to it. Um, and what's happening now is then blue states are doing it because red states are doing it. And then, as we were talking, within just days, you saw a lot of liberals go from, well, I guess midterms won't count. And you saw people who had already had a lack of faith with Trump because he came back in 2024. And now they're going, okay, well, maybe the next election will do something. And then within days, they just gave up in any faith in election. As 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 you know, when people stop believing that voting or will have any effect or they have any ability on their government, that's the sign right before collapse. And so we're seeing people basically say, I mean, it was within days that multiple states were saying, well, then we'll gerrymander our districts, like right away, multiple red states and then multiple blue states, nobody pushing back, nobody in the Senate or the federal government pushing back or the presidency. And as you pointed out, the Supreme Court has already said 2 years before they're not going to touch redistricting again. So there's going to be no referees. The Constitution says the Supreme Court should step into issues like that. They've said they're not going to, and it seems to be a race to the bottom at the state level. Total chaos, literal race to the bottom, like the way economists describe it. And there's nothing that can be done. And basically, everybody got in on this within days. They basically just threw away all faith in the voting system and started going into a competition with each other. That doesn't say stability in America, does it?
Not at all. And there really is in this particular advocacy campaign, there are so many opportunities to say fill in the blank only becomes possible through Calexit. And one of those things that I say is stability.
Like
Stability
that.
it only happens through Calexit. Because if we stay as part of the United States and we get into this, everything that the previous administration did is now gone. Here's my agenda. That administration leaves, another one comes in from the other party. Everything that those guys did, were gone. How do you build a business or even maintain a life circumstance in that situation? In one cycle, one election cycle, school debt it can be wiped out. In another cycle, it can't. In one cycle, you can have same-sex marriage. In another cycle, you can't. And it's going on and on and on. So we offer we offer a number of things in California, but mainly we offer California values that just don't exist anywhere else in the country. Why do they hate us so much? Because we're so successful. Why do they hate us so much? Because we care. Why do they hate us so much? Because we put our arms around people. We don't put them in cages. And that's the difference between us and them. And right now, the more that we can establish to the electorate in California that, hey, if you like this situation where you don't know today, you don't know tomorrow, which of today's laws are going to be applied to you, and under what circumstances you can either escape from being persecuted by a crazy, mad, rogue administration. I mean, or what are you going to be in a cage somewhere, shipped off to a Salvadoran prison? I mean, there's none. This is all instability. Every aspect of life is full of instability right now. So what about, again, in our BAM messages, our best available messages, universal health care, only possible through Calexit. Common sense gun control, only possible through Calexit. Common sense immigration reform, only possible through Calexit. There's so many things. We go back into this donor state circumstance where, California is a donor state. We subsidize to one degree or another 37 other states, some aspect of their budgets. Our population, as Gavin has pointed out many times in the last couple of days, 21 equals 21 other states in terms of population. But those 21 other states have 42 electoral votes for their senators, and we have two for ours. So so
Yeah,
so we have the population of 21 states. We subsidize 35 states, and from an electoral college perspective, there's every reason to think that California will never have a hand in electing another president as long as any of us live. And I
right,
use I use the 2016 election as an example. In 2016, there were right around 21, 22 million Californians that cast ballots, and if all and they didn't all cast the ballots for the same person. But if all 21 million Californians cast their ballot for the same person, the outcome of the election would have been the same.
right.
And so my question is, how long does the fourth largest economy in the world, population of 21 individual states, subsidizing 35 states, sending 80 billion more to Washington every year than we get back in services, how much longer should that entity look in the mirror and say, we're perfectly comfortable never having a say in the presidential election ever again? And since more legislation, since more things are enacted now, more orders, more executive orders are enacted
Right.
now, which replace the function of the Congress
Congress.
in as many instances as possible. What that means to us is we don't like the president. We don't like the president who's there now. We don't like what the president's doing there now. Is it possibility that somebody could come in who was even worse? And what do we do then? If we haven't made this move now, it's going to be real hard to make it then because everything in life is a matter of timing. This is our time, and it needs to happen now because if it doesn't, if we do nothing, we know exactly how this movie ends.
So I'm going to ask you a few more questions. I want to remind everybody, please donate. Unfortunately, in politics, money is important. Even Bernie Sanders, who was a dedicated socialist, had to do a lot of money. Now he said I'm not going to take big corporations, but he took a lot of small dollar donations, which allowed him to basically stand at the financial level of the other giants he was competing against. I don't like that reality, but it is a reality. I give about 10K a year to this myself. I'm not suggesting you do that, but anything counts. If you have a dollar or two, it all helps. The Sanders campaign, as I always remind people, two-thirds of all the staff and his leadership came from California. So just kind of those were, I'm not saying Sanders equals California, but I am saying there was a ton of his staff who were helping him develop that run that was so successful. We're from here. Um, Let me cover a couple of things then. So what we're saying, we covered the reasons why to believe this instability and the direct attack on California in ways that we've never seen in American history. Basically, you're seeing this thing break apart and you're seeing monsters come and attack you. How well do you think this is going to go before you need to get your own walled in castle? But the questions of what to do. So, a blue ribbon panel commission versus the ballot and signature collection versus a resolution. These are all trying to do the same thing, which is get the California government to do an investigation into Calexit. Why is the California government doing an investigation into Calexit so pivotal? Now, initially people were saying you got to have a vote, you got to have a vote, but we've talked about how if you just announce the world's fourth largest economy is officially looking into secession, it would be such a giant global shockwave. So what is this commission investigation and what are these three different ways to do that, sir? Please, sir.
The commission is basically an appointed group that conducts research in this case, it would conduct research into all of the prospectively or potentially even lawful means of separating from the country. We don't use secession anymore. We only use separation because
Separation.
secession has a bad connotation. It's presumed immediately that that's going to be violent, and so on down the road. So I think separation is really where we are. We're not looking to hurt anybody, but we certainly are looking to move forward. What the commission would do would be to get experts in the fields of legislation, finance, and any number of other areas. They'd hold hearings, they'd put a report together, get back to the legislature, and then the legislature on its own then could offer a constitutional amendment which would amend the California state constitution to permit withdrawal as step one. And so then there would still end up being the delegation sent to Washington to attempt the peaceful resolution of the separation. That's the blue ribbon panel. The key to both the resolution and the blue ribbon panel is that the simple filing, the mere filing in the state legislature of that resolution or the bill to authorize the Blue Ribbon Commission. Those are international news. It's not just news in Sacramento. As a campaign manager, you never want to start your campaign with little or no dollars. And the reason for that is when you go to larger money contributors, they're going to say, "Come back to me when you're real. I support you. I will help you, but I'm not going to help you until I know that you're viable. Because if you're not viable, then I might as well, take a match to the dollars I would give you." Everybody who gives at that level wants something in return, principally access, and we're not at that place. But to get the big dollars, to get the super PAC authorized and functioning, we need to be, just for lack of a better term, we need to be self-sufficient so that we can present the larger money donors with a picture that looks like, hey, this is a viable situation. This advocacy campaign can be successful. And yes, I will put $100 million in a super PAC and go from there. So again, all of these preliminary steps, meeting with legislators, lobbying them to put a resolution on the floor, lobbying them to petition for a blue ribbon commission, and all of these other things. Those are all essential steps because they all tell not only the world, but they tell the $100 million investor that we're for real, that we're viable, and that's why we keep harping right now on the contributions, because we're operating right now with a reasonably conservative staff. There are certainly many more people that will be required to pull this off. In terms of signature gathering alone, we could require as many as 10,000 signature gatherers to cover the landmass that we know as the soon-to-be sovereign state of California. So we'll need more people in more departments because by the first of the year, we need to be able to be seen by anyone looking at us as viable, as hey, they can win this. And the more viable that we get, the more money that we raise, the more people that we staff up, the more things that we do that look like an honest to goodness statewide electoral campaign. That then the money falls from trees and comes out of the woodwork. But it's this opening push to get us to that point where we really are right now.
So just to make it clear to everybody, every year the California government does a blue ribbon panel investigation, an official state investigation. It could be for there's too many cockroaches in little kids' schools and across the state, and they found 16 schools that have cockroaches. So what they'll do is they'll interview all the doctors of professors of cockroach study and people who build schools and teachers who run schools, and they'll figure out why are there so many cockroaches in these schools? And what are some of the ways we could fix this? And how do we know that it's bad? And they'll put together a report and it goes, cockroaches are in schools. It's a problem. Here's why it's happening. And here's some potential solutions. And then the government of California can enact legislation, or it could choose to ignore it and just read the report. That's typically the way that this happens for really boring, everyday stuff you just don't even hear about. I really learned about this when they were dealing with women's hair salons, and they did some regulation because women were getting sick from some chemical, and they go, no more of that. But they had to have this whole study and have doctors and women's hair salons and some woman who lost her hair. It's a very boring procedural thing, but it happens all the time. All that we're doing is we're directing that to the topic of independence. So now the government will go, Oh, well, we got to get experts on independence and we got to get people who could say how this would affect them. And we got to get people who may vote on it and put together the same thing. We've taken a truly banal act, boring, everyday, mundane, and we're making it really hot by saying it's on secession. Now, there's three ways to do it. I've learned a lot of this from JJ. The first one that we've been working out at Calexit, and this is the only one we've known about for years, was a simple the resolution. You collect enough signatures, and then it goes to a vote of the public, and the public can literally vote and force the legislature to do a blue ribbon panel. So you wouldn't even ask the legislature; it would go to the voters, and they'd be forced to do it. That's the main one we've been pursuing for the last 10 years. Recently, we've learned, well, in the last few months, you can go directly to the legislators themselves and ask them to sponsor the panel. It only takes two assembly members, maybe senators, but definitely assembly members to start sponsoring a blue ribbon panel and five more to confirm it. That's seven. There's about 140 people in Sacramento. If you add all the assembly members and all the senators, don't quote me on that number, but it's a big number. It's not like five, it's 140-ish. Okay, we need two to sponsor the panel and five to back it up. Additionally, as JJ has pointed out too many times to me, a lot of times when two people come forward, it's not that hard to get additional sponsors. Once they see somebody's willing to do this, they'll jump on board. So really, we're just talking about two people out of 140 to sponsor a blue ribbon panel, and they can call for it directly.
And
Finally,
Marcus, if I
yeah,
can just jump
please,
in for 1 second,
please.
uh, the there's such a bandwagon effect in this
Yes,
policy practice. Nobody wants to be the first guy on the bus, but nobody wants the bus to leave without him. So we find ourselves in a situation where uh, I don't think it's going to be incredibly difficult to pursue that route because there are going to be more and more and more Gallup polls and Pew polls and other polls that will start to ask the question about Cal separation, about Cal exit and separation. And the minute that those pollsters do that, candidates all across the country are going to know that because polls are obviously published routinely, and the the significance of someone like Gallup or Pew or Reuters, anybody, the significance of them, even just including that question in their battery of questions, provides an element of legitimacy, to Calexit. And what you're going to see over the course of time is that the first day that somebody sees a signature gatherer at a supermarket, that's going to be statewide news. It's going to be international news. It's going to be national news because everybody because again, what is California and what is the rest of the country and what is the rest of the world waiting to see? Are we credible? Are we viable? Can we win? If we establish that we're credible, we're viable, and we can win, then, as I say, we'll dwarf the fundraising of some major candidates in past elections.
I'm glad you brought that up. What we call I call them plateaus. Um, I'll cover that in just a second, but just so
I didn't
everybody's
mean to
following.
interrupt you.
No,
I
no,
didn't
no,
mean to
no,
interrupt
no.
you,
This is
Marcus.
just
Back
I
to you.
just like to summarize so everybody can follow
Yeah.
along.
Mhm.
The America's becoming unstable. California is being attacked. Those are the reasons why it's the best time for Calexit. It's obvious to people that California is being attacked. There's nothing that can be done to protect them. Nothing could stop it, and they can see the country disintegrating. That's just unstable to stay next to a burning forest fire and not try to move at least a few feet away. Then we're talking about, well, what could be done about it? And it's file the resolution, get the signatures, and force the legislature to do an official investigation. Or you get just two out of 140 legislators to actually sponsor the Blue Ribbon Panel. How would you do that? You would ask them, did you see the Marines come in the streets? Tell me the last time that happened in America. And then we go, hold on, separation? That's extreme. You go, again, did you see the Marines in the streets? You're telling me we're not there yet? So that's an easy sell. Finally, the one, and this is JJ's own insight, was a resolution. You can have a resolution where one assembly member and one senator asks for a joint statement of everybody in the legislature, which calls for a blue ribbon panel. That again only takes two people to start. So we're looking for two assembly members or one assembly, one senator, or the signature campaign. Now we're pursuing all, but if you're thinking about this, 550,000 signatures versus 50,000 phone calls to two legislators. I mean, it's really low hanging fruit to get this done. And the reason that that commission is important is like JJ said. Now, the Calexit initiative we've been pursuing for decades calls for the blue ribbon panel and for a vote. Our movement was more focused on the vote, though. In the last 6 months, I've come to recognize that the panel could conceivably be more important for when you're looking at this in the long term, meaning that in Scotland, they were part of England for about 500 years. And then they decided to have a official investigation called the Coleman Commission by the government of Holyrood, that's the Scottish government. Historians say that you could date Scottish independence for the first time in 500 years to the publication of that Common Commission document. Now, it would be years more before they'd have a vote and they would get some independence. And even then, they'd have another vote and they wouldn't win that. But if you're looking at a half a thousand year trajectory, everybody goes, it was the moment their government officially looked into the realities of separation that you could tell these people were going to do this in some way. Simply because it was so shocking. The government of Scotland's looking into separation from England for the first time in 5 centuries. Same thing here with California. The government of California is looking into separation. You're the world's fourth largest economy. That can't happen. Okay, but they're looking into it. It's not some activists. It's not people on the ground. It's the actual official government. Now, maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe they say it's a bad idea, but they're looking into it. That'll send global shockwaves. And we'll have a whole new era of people and experts coming in and donations. Is that a fair summary of what we're getting at?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add one more point on the issue of stability. I mean, right now, the Trump tariffs are killing many industries all across the country. And that will happen in California as well. So again, the path to stability begins with Calexit, because at that point in time, a sovereign California could become extraordinarily business friendly, while at the same time being as protective as we are now of the environment, and as concerned as we are right now about essentially equity and justice for all Californians. I mean, if California businesses are forced out of business as a result of the tariff circumstance, we may never get them back at that point. So right now, again, eliminating tariffs or imposing realistic tariffs as the sovereign nation of California will certainly provide advanced elements of stability to California businesses that businesses in the remainder of the United States will still be subject to that up and down movement of whoever happens to be in the White House at that point.
Yes, Jim Wonderman, president of the Bay Area Council, that's the top 500 corporations in San Francisco, that includes all of Silicon Valley, was talking about how ruinous the trade wars with China under Trump were. He was talking about 2016. But when I was talking to him, we were talking in 2020. And I go, how do you feel about the fact that Biden continued most of them? He goes, well, that's horrible for the California economy. And then Trump came back and did it even more. And what they were pointing out was, guys, here's the thing. In America, about 7 to 15% max is dependent on international trade when you look at America as a whole. In California, we're approaching 40%. So if I want to have radical surgery and I have to remove half of your organs, you're going to be in shock no matter what good stuff I'm doing. If I have to do radical surgery and I only have to remove about 10% of your organs, you could probably get over that. And so the difference is that when Trump or Biden decide to do a trade war with China, this is what happens to the California economy. Even when the deal comes out and it's better for America, you can't shake the hell out of our economy that far and have it not be absolutely ruinous for us. And that's what Jim Wonderman was pointing out. He goes, when they do these roughshod negotiations, which Biden did too, you're supposed to have meetings, summits, and you have months of underlings work out agreements, and then the leaders kind of agree on this, and then they say it's going to be implemented slowly next year over time. That's not what they're doing. This is chaos. And so when you have that, it's oh yeah, well, tariffs on you. Oh yeah, well, tariffs on you. Well, did I talk to you? No, I'm not talking to you. Boom, tariffs. What are you going to do about it? That's destructive to our economy. You cannot shake it up without us being ruined, no matter what and who does it. And that's both administrations. And it doesn't seem to be concerned because Americans seem to be focused on China's an enemy and let's go to war with them or let's second guess them rather than China's the source of 2/3 of the wealth coming in the next 30 years. Let's attach ourselves to that. So we have one conversation in California, have a total different one in America that's nothing but detrimental to us.
And I just wanted to add one thing too. It dovetails to some extent with what you were saying, Marcus. But I've talked to some people who said, "Well, we only have to deal with this until 28, and it'll all get better in 28." And my response was, knowing that Donald Trump will still be in a position in 28, assuming he's still alive, that he'll be in a position to essentially determine who the next nominee is for the Republican Party. And there may be 30, 40 different potential candidates there, but things are not going to improve when Trump leaves because Trumpism is going to be here for a
Thank
long, long
you.
time after that. And the person who succeeds in getting the Republican nomination in 28, assuming that there is an election, because that has to assume that tanks aren't on the bridges between Washington, D.C. and Virginia. But assuming that there is an election, uh, Trumpism will play as big a role in that as Trump did himself. You'll see every single, well, you'll see 99% of the Republican primary candidates who will wrap themselves around Trump, clinging on to him to try to get his endorsement. And end of story. He will determine who the nominee is, and he is obviously not going to pick someone who doesn't reflect the lack of values that he has. So it'll be another valueless individual, another person who has no soul, and that'll be that. So if you talk to people and their suggestion is, oh, well, we can manage until 2028. We can get by until Trump leaves. Number one, that assumes he's going to leave, and number two, that assumes that he's not going to have any input into who the successor nominee would be. So it doesn't get better; it only gets worse. Because in order for one of those 35 or 40 prospective candidates to get the Trump endorsement in 2028, again, assuming that there is an election, they're going to have to out Trump Trump. So the policies that are going to be offered by the Republican Party, no matter who the 28 nominee is, are going to be Trump policies through and through and through. You're not going to have a Republican candidate in 28 in the primary campaign, step up on the Republican side and say, "My plan is to reverse all the tariffs. My plan is to
Right,
codify Roe versus Wade. My plan." No, they're not going to do that. So I
right.
go back to what I said at the very, very beginning. The only path to the maintenance and forward movement of the California way, the California lifestyle, the California value is through Calexit, because you're not going to get it even with a Democratic president in 2028. Because the Congress has been in gridlock with both presidents, with both parties in power, and if you don't have a unified government situation like Trump has now, where the same party holds the House, the Senate, and the White House, you're really not going to be able to get anything done. And the Senate map in 26 is horrible for Democrats. It's much better in 28, but that's a dice roll. It's a dice roll, and frankly, I'm tired of gambling on the United States government. It's just that simple.
Um, yeah, absolutely. Something you had pointed out to me, I had asked professors, how many of you, this is the thing I would say to that person, right? You predicted January 6th?
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
You predicted the
yeah,
Unite the Right rally? No, no, you
no.
didn't. You predicted the Republican Party would walk back their condemnation of storming the Capitol? Mm-mm. So when I see people who are like, one more election, I'm like, tell me about how you predicted all these things that were incredibly destabilizing and shocked the hell out of everybody, and that literally no one predicted. Oh, you didn't predict those multiple events? how can you tell me there isn't going to be something even worse than we can possibly imagine coming around the corner? You totally missed these three. So I'm
Yeah,
like, how do you know it doesn't get worse? I've asked professors this and they go, I told you about this when we first started talking. The professors are
yeah.
like, well, we lived through the 60s and the Civil War and, we'll get through it. And you had your answer for that. And I'd go, so tell me how many of you predicted January 6th? Not one. And I go, tell me there's definitely not going to be a January 6th part two. No one could say that. And I go, so what's your faith based on? Because you totally got it wrong and you can't tell me it's not going to happen again, but you're sure everything's going to work out. January 6th is a sign of things working out? No, it's not. So how can you be sure it's going to work out and yet you're totally admitting you didn't see January 6th coming at all, you didn't understand it, and you're not willing to take any sort of guess on that there won't be a second one? Why should I believe you? Okay, moving on. And you're the one that taught me about the Unite the Right and the significance of that. Like just these things come out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
like this, so I see people like one more lecture and I go, tell me how you got all this. No, you missed it all. And it was scarier than anything we want. Why do you think? Tell me how you predicted Donald Trump was going to send Marines in on a domestic protest. Tell me how you predicted that Donald Trump would send the National Guard against the will of the people. Tell me how you knew that they were going to throw a senator to the ground like a dog, like you hadn't seen since the 1960s. You didn't predict any of these things. They're all
Or
horrible.
the Texas redistricting or
Or the
anything,
Texas
anything like that.
redistricting. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the fact that in 5 days, half the states in America would say, screw it. Let's just rig the whole system. It's fine with me. Like totally giving up on belief in reasonable elections. I want to get to the questions, but before we do, um, I want to point out something and then I want to ask you a question if I can, and then we'll get to the questions from the audience. So we have some major events coming up. And when we're asking about donations, this is what we're talking about. And one of them is going to be the PAC. JJ's, I can ask him about that here in a second. But we have a influencer event where we're going to be having 50 influencers each with 1 million followers for potentially 50 to 100 million views. Influencer event, basically 50 influencers streamed together in one location. We have the location, we have a lot of it put together. That's just because of Dr. X. We're also going to have a film festival where there will be filmmakers across California making Calexit films, and then there will be a film festival where we'll show nothing but Calexit films and announce a winner who will be listed in a major Hollywood feature film and get $5,000. In addition, that Calexit film will be shown across theaters across California. That's never happened before. We're also going to be launching an app that's coming and a pack that's coming, and we have a tour for the upcoming signature gathering campaign. And I wanted to bring this up because it's similar to what JJ was talking about with if you have one signature gatherer part of an official campaign at one grocery store, it'll be international news. If we
Yeah.
have one influencer event with 50 million views, international news. If we have one film festival, if we have one political action group that's actually launched, if we have one commercial, buy a pack that's TV quality. This is what I call plateaus, meaning no, California's not independent the next day, but you can go, what was it like the day before the news said the legislature of California is officially investigating separation, not secession, separation, and the day after? The shockwave, the amount of news, you just can't tell. So the tour, the influencer event, the film fest, the app, the pack, signature gatherers in front of a store. All of these things, each individually would be game changing. We're pursuing seven at once. Each one can change the game. And we're doing all of them at the same time. This is what I mean about why I backed Dr. X is we weren't, I've been at this 12 years. Nobody was thinking about any of these things or making them happen. And we're about a month away from doing them all. We've done incredible work on lobbying is the other one with Dr. Harmon and reaching out to other legislators. That's the thing why we were talking about the ways to do this. So we're reaching out to Tony Atkins, we're reaching out to other legislators who are in the California government through Dr. Harmon to try to get the blue ribbon panel done. Now, the big part of that, and what I want to ask you is tell me why a PAC is important. And we don't want to give any details away, but
Sure.
roughly, we are developing a PAC website, a PAC commercial. We are interviewing for PAC managers. We are interviewing for CFO managers. We have already interviewed multiple people to form an advisory committee, and we have you, and you've taken like 5 or 4 master courses on pack management.
Mhm.
So for everybody, we're interviewing leaders, we're interviewing other leaders. We have this guy's taken every course out there, website, bank account, already registered, commercial, all coming up together. While I get a drink of juice and you talk for a few minutes, why is a pack important? What is it? And why is it key to Calexit? In just a 3 to 5 minute elevator speech, not more, because I don't want to
Sure.
overwhelm people. Like the first time you introduced pack to me, I was like, oh, so we're not going to give them the full meal. I want you to give them a soup. What is a pack? Why is it
PAC is
important?
a PAC is a political action committee, and basically it's a way that candidates and advocacy campaigns raise money. There's one set of rules for a PAC that's managed by the candidate, or in this case, the advocacy campaign, and another set of rules for super PACs, another set of rules for corporate PACs, and another set of rules for 501(c)(3) and C4 entities under the IRS code. Um, PAC is important primarily for this reason. If you were having someone come and build a brand new house on a plot of land that you own, you'd probably want to say, uh, what website can I go to see some of your other work? It's the same thing in politics. If your builder has no website, you're probably not going to have him build your house. If you're talking about a political campaign, whether it's a candidate campaign or an advocacy campaign, if somebody says, where can I access your political action committee? How can I access your political action committee? And your response is, oh, we don't have one. Well, then that sophisticated investor in the political process knows right away that you're not viable and that you have no chance of winning. Because in a statewide campaign, in the biggest, the most populous state in the nation, you're going to require, as I say, I budgeted this out at somewhere between 330 and $340 million. And if you don't have a political action committee to fund to essentially gather funds and disperse funds, again, you're probably not commercially viable at that point in time. So we have undertaken to put the PAC in play so that the larger donors and even smaller donors can see that we've followed all proper procedures and positioned ourselves very effectively to be successful in the campaign. Campaigns There's only two things that campaigns never have enough of. One is time, and the other one's money. Time and money, time and money, time and money. And when you are starting out, basically from scratch, I mean, if I was Chuck Grassley, who'd been in the Senate for coming up on 50 years, I don't necessarily have to throw money out to establish my credibility and establish my political viability because my 50 years in the Senate establishes that. But if you're a challenger in a Senate race, or if you're a challenger in a House race, or if you're an organization like ours, like at Calexit now, trying to really uh, recraft the landscape of the political process in the United States. You can't just run to $100 million investor and say, "Hey, how about doing us a favor? You could put that 100 million into a super PAC, not our PAC, because you can't have coordination between your super PAC and your candidate PAC. But there are many ways that happens anyway. But we want to be able to show that we're politically viable, that we can win, and that the only thing that we lack is more time and more money, which is the same thing that every other campaign lacks. And so we're presenting ourselves to these prospective high dollar individuals in the same manner as any other same manner as any one of the next presidential nominees presents themselves out. So because we have a great need right now for if for nothing else than to become known, and to become known among the politically investing community, and to become known among the political journalistic community, and many others. We just need to look the part. We need to look the part before we can actually be the part at that point.
So again, I'm going to remind everybody, this is why donations are important. Um, we have one on GoFundMe and we have one on Patreon. Those are available through the website calexitnow.org. That's Calexit Now. The donate button's right there at the top right corner, and it goes to Indiegogo and GoFundMe, legitimate ones. Additionally, we're going to have the PAC website up, and we'll be doing donations directly to the PAC. That's coming soon. We have somebody who's excellent at and already runs a PAC doing the website. We've already developed the PAC website. We have a lot of content, of testimonials of people saying why they back Calexit. We already have a template we based it on. JJ and I have been interviewing people for the PAC manager, people for the chief financial officer position, of additionally a board of advisors for the PAC. There's already a website. It's already been filed by Dr. X. And we just need, oh, and we can't show it you, but JJ finished a beautiful PAC commercial that I think's ready. We might give it over to the doctor and see if it can go, the doctor can do something, but I think it's outstanding. And I can only tell you what it's going to look like when you have a perfect PAC commercial on a perfect PAC website with everything already set up and pictures of Calexit people standing next to major California politicians. So when we went down to Tony Atkins' opening, there's tons of pictures of Dr. X talking to Tony Atkins' staff and us talking to Tony Atkins. And then we were at the California Democratic Party convention, and there's tons of pictures of us talking to legislators there. So we've already have some proof in the pudding, or in the bone marrow, if you will, and that's why it's important. JJ?
Yeah, one other point I just want to make to establish in everybody's mind that we are viable right now. We just don't have the chops to show the world how viable we are, which we will. But one thing that tells me how viable things are. Three people, it was two last week. Now it's three. Three people in Orange County who are in their 50s who never voted for a Democratic candidate in their life, have voted straight Republican ticket since they were 18, have volunteered to be signature gatherers, and will support this effort. So, and this is with basically no one saying anything to anybody about anything at all. This is just one-on-one conversations, and the next thing you know, somebody who's never, 50 plus years old, never voted for a Democrat in their life, volunteer to become a part of the process that they have never in their life volunteered to become a part of. So we're gonna be able to be successful here by rallying the support from faithful voters, people who come out and vote all the time. But I think that we're going to see such a rush, such an infusion of new voters into the process for this reason. Single issue voters have been very, very effective in many, many instances. And what we're going to be cultivating in the non-traditional voter, the person who doesn't come out every time, maybe the first time that they voted, maybe the first time they've been eligible to vote. That's the group that we're going to be able to get into that group and really make some hay in there and create and cultivate a whole new attitude in the next generation of people. And that attitude is going to be Calexit. So
There you go. And I call it the JJ Jolt. JJ was at the meeting. We had three people immediately volunteer afterwards because they saw JJ's and they go, "Wow, you're serious. I can see you have serious people on there. I want in." There was another fourth person who did the same thing, and then now you're saying about even more. It's the reason I bring that up is that you're letting that effect that he's talking about is the same that we're talking about with when there is a PAC commercial, when there is an app, when there is a PAC website, when there is the influencer event, the film fest, the tour, when there is one signature gatherer with like the official t-shirt and I'm from this PAC group and I'm collecting signatures, it gives a level of legitimacy. So
mhm.
you're better at this than me. No problem saying that because I want to win. And what happened was is that I'm doing this but I'm a self-learned policy analyst. And when you came on, you're actually coming from DC and you're saying a lot of the same things. It gave more credibility and we got more response. I say this purely with love. That's how we're going to win. And so what I want everybody to recognize is that when JJ came in and he was at this level, we're at this level. JJ comes in, he moves us to this level. We automatically get new people showing, okay, I'll mess with you guys and I'll donate.
Sure.
So the same thing happens with I see a commercial, I see a tour, I see a politician sponsoring the committee, I see you hanging out with somebody, I see an app, I see the pack, I see etc. These are called plateaus. You've seen a little bit of the example, and it's when we show that we're playing at that level, new people come out. Um,
And what that
let's,
leads to, Marcus,
yeah,
let me say this, what that leads to is this. It would be very, very unusual at this moment in time for an elected official to come out and say, I endorse Calexit, especially if it's a California governor who's already announced for president. How could he want to be the president of the United States that he wants to separate from? So there's going to be a lot of elected officials that can't come on board. But again, nobody wants to be first, but everybody doesn't want to be last. If we end up being successful, we get into the Gallup poll, we get into the Reuters poll, we get into the Ipsos poll, and we get into the Pew poll, and the results start showing 40% support, 50% support, 60% support. If we hit 60% support, that's when the politicians are going to say, I need to cultivate this group because I want their base voters to be my base voters.
right,
So at that point in time, you're going to have elected officials getting on board. And the neat thing about the relationship between political action committees is that political action committees can donate to one another.
right,
So if we are successful in getting a substantial number of local, county, statewide politicians who are looking at the poll results and saying, "Hey, I can't piss these people off because I may need their voters. I may need their base. They're bringing in all these new voters. I don't know the new voters. They've never heard of me before. They've never voted for me before. How do I get in? How do I get in touch with that crop, that giant crop of new voters that came in?
right,
Well, I know they're all Calexit voters, so let me
right,
talk to Calexit about that.
right.
So it all begins with step one in the process. Step one in the process is gaining enough notoriety to have ourselves be deemed politically viable. And in all honesty, after 40 years in this business and managing campaigns from county sheriff up to congressional races, lieutenant governor races, and working on 4 presidential campaigns, I can tell you that this is a as much of a lead pipe cinch as you can say right now. Now, does that mean there's not going to be a $500 million come out and try to beat us up a little bit? Of course not, because there are vested interests in keeping the union together.
What? Hold on, hold on. You're saying there might be people who won't announce themselves, but would have power and would want to just stomp this movement into the ground in an undemocratic manner? Where do you get this stuff?
I get that from 40 years in the business.
What?
Like I said,
I just watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, MSNBC, and Fox News, and they assured me that's not how it works. Who do I believe?
well, you certainly can't believe Fox News because they've admitted in open court that you can't believe them. So it's a reason why they're not on the air in Canada or Australia. So, but
MSNBC
in
said the same thing in a federal
yeah,
court.
yeah, and that's like I said. I think that in my courses and my students they have to write a policy paper, and that they always ask me this. Well, what's a credible source? Because they have to produce 5 credible sources, and I say, what's a credible source? And so I respond by saying not Fox News. And of course, I'm in Oklahoma, so a lot of my students come from Republican backgrounds, even though they're only 18. But they say, well, why is Fox News not a credible source? And I said, Fox is not a credible source because they've gone into open court when they've been sued for various defamation and other things. And they've told the judge point blank, you can't hold us to the same standard that you hold a news organization because we're not a news organization.
Yeah.
We're an entertainment organization.
Yep. Yep.
And as an entertainment organization, they'll come hard. Everybody will come hard at us. But again, if by the time that people realize that we're in the game, it's already the ninth inning. There's nothing they're going to be able to do about it. We have we
Yeah.
have to we have to be we have to do all of the things right now that a presidential campaign would do. We have to do all of the things that a California statewide campaign would have to do, and we can do that. We can do it successfully and effectively, and do enough of it under the radar so that by the time we blip on the screen, the deed is done.
We're going to go to questions now. We are going to
Okay.
have more meetings in the future. We want to bring JJ back and more stuff. JJ's here. If you want to work with JJ, we're looking for more volunteers. Some of you have already volunteered. You can volunteer. Marcus at Calexit Now, if you have questions for JJ, questions for me, questions you want us to answer on anything, Marcus at Calexit now, Marcus at Calexit now, Marcus at Calexit now, Marcus at Calexit now. We can't take questions during the show. So we take questions ahead of time. I'm sorry. You have to send questions in ahead of time, and then we will address them in the next show. The reason that we do that is that not everybody's an honest actor or wants to play by the rules. Unfortunately, in politics, there's some people who feel I don't have to play by the rules and I can hijack the meeting and talk about something that's completely unrelated to whatever we're talking about. So I apologize. If you send me Marcus at calexitnow.org, I promise you, we will answer your questions. So I saw a few hands there. Please email me. I'm not saying we don't want to answer your questions. We do. Please email me. We will address them. I promise you. We're going to do it in an organized fashion. JJ, I'll read off the questions and then you give us some
Sure.
brilliance.
Do my best.
So the first one is by Joey. Given all the roadblocks for accomplishing Calexit, what is the best guess as to when it will happen?
Well, the beautiful part about that question is the portion of the answer that says, since we will be pursuing what amounts to effectively a voluntary separation, a separation by mutual consent, uh, that could happen even without an election, believe it or not. So I mean, so while yes, there are some legal roadblocks, there are some procedural roadblocks. They don't necessarily close off all access, and even where there are roadblocks, for example, with a petition campaign, got to get the signatures, got to be able to pay the people who get the signatures. We need a full-time staff. We need a media consultant. We need other consultants that we need to bring on if we're going to continue to show the investor community not only that we're viable, but that we're gaining strength as we go, that we're trending upward at all times. And we can do that while we're pursuing all of the avenues that we've addressed. Uh, they're I would say I don't anticipate any hardcore legal challenges, but this is America. Anybody can sue anybody, and of course there will be that will occur. Uh, but I think that there's a there there's a natural mental block to getting from I'm a state in the United States to I'm an independent sovereign nation, not in the minds of Marcus or myself or the people who are involved in the movement right now, but in the minds of the average person trying to evaluate what they want to vote for in a given election. Um, we are viable. We will become more viable. We're aware of all of the potential speed bumps on the road to success, but there are also some shortcuts on the road to success that may circumvent those speed bumps. And so I can tell you that uh, I am supremely confident. And now, if would I have been as confident 10 years ago? No, because we haven't had all of those crazy Trump things happen in the
Right
meantime.
there.
And it's not that it's not the craziness of the individual Trump thing that I'm talking about. It's enough people looking at what has happened, starting out by saying, "Boy, I never would have thought this could have happened," and then getting to what the hell happens next. And when you get to the what the hell happens next, then you start analyzing Trump, who, by the way, I have known since 1985, and you start to look at him, and you can say to yourself that wherever he is at now in terms of his stretching the boundary line of presidential power, you can know one thing for sure: he wants to be outside of that boundary line tomorrow. He wants to impose this concept called the unitary executive on the United States. And basically, the unitary executive is a king. The unitary executive can circumvent the Congress, can circumvent the courts, can impose martial law, can do all of these other things. And when you're looking at Trump, all you have to say is, I never believed any of this would happen. What the hell happens next? And that's how we get people to thinking about where we are and where we're headed. And Joey, I understand that there's a natural inclination to say this can't happen, but we have to be the ones to make it happen. Because if it doesn't happen, like I said in the very beginning of this talk, we know how the movie ends. And it ends with Civil War 2.0, and it ends with not 566,000 people dying. It ends up with tens of millions of people dying. And maybe that's what the 1% of the 1% would like to see happen right now. But then you run into the issue of who's left to do who's left to do the jobs. We're talking about sending 10, 11 million undocumented to some other country. Uh, at the same time, we could be in Civil War 2.0, losing another 10 to 20 million Americans. So at that point, even in the restoration process at that stage of the game,
Mm.
who does the jobs? I mean, so again, what I'm proposing is that we always bring it back to Calexit brings stability. Calexit eliminates all of these other problems that we could point directly at Washington and blame on them, regardless of which administration, which party is in the Oval Office at the time. So I think that there are. It's for now. It's best to simply say there are lawful methods by which we can accomplish this separation, and we're pursuing those lawful methods, and we'll continue to pursue them. And they all have uh, avenues that we can go down that lead to the formation of a new nation. And frankly, like I said, when I went to from Washington to Oklahoma, a lot of people said, you should get on the horse and ride into the sunset kind of thing. But I've acquired so much knowledge in the 35, 40 years in this process that you can't get out of any book at all. So I felt a need to actually give back to students and at a time when they may be going into the voting in their first election, and most of them are. The only experience and exposure to the political system they've had is what they got from their parents around the dinner table, and that's usually lacking in sophistication in most cases by itself. So what we're doing here right now is pursuing all legal avenues. The avenues are there; they are reachable, they are attainable, but they're only attainable if we continue to go full speed ahead. And to do that, we're back to the time and money circumstance.
Absolutely. I'll just throw in a couple things, some facts.
Sure.
Uh, when the Soviet Union broke apart, nobody predicted about Estonia. It also happened very fast, and it was completely, basically, not violent. Nobody predicted that. Czechoslovakia, not so much, but there are times where everything's fine, it's going along, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't work, and everybody wants out, and it's that fast. You can also look at the 1915 to 1917 period. It's called the Springtime of Nations. A lot of nations were disintegrating and then reforming very quickly. None of the experts saw it. So sometimes when these things happen, the experts don't see that it's happening. They think it may not happen. And then it happens very quickly because the scenarios change. For example, with the Soviet Union, people just said, I don't want to do it anymore. And then they called the other government and go, are you cool if we just end this? And basically they go, yeah. And then they called another one and they go, yeah. And it just, I remember reading the biography of George H.W. Bush, and he was sitting there with Colin Powell at the end of the table with the Soviet premier, one of the last generals, saying, the Soviet Union's over, and he goes, "It can't be like this. You can't just go, oh, it's over. The 50-year Cold War's over because some guy shows up at yeah, sometimes." So when we're looking at these things, nobody predicted January 6th, right? Nobody predicted the Charlottesville. Wild events can happen that dramatically shift public opinion instantaneously. When that happens, things can happen very quickly. So all we really have to do to leave is we have to have a vote amongst the people here. Technically, we need to have over 52%. Brexit's international precedent. And then we would send an elected official or someone appointed to ask Congress for that. If there's a special election, which the legislature in Sacramento or the governor can call for a special election at any time, you could be having that vote for independence very quickly. And then let's say Republicans hate our guts, they might be voting us out within a month. So this could take years. It could also, tomorrow, something happens like JJ says. Uh, Trump,
And believe it or not, that Marcus, if we get to the point relatively soon where we would have a delegation going to Washington, the strangest bedfellow on the planet who would probably receive that delegation well is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has already talked about promoting a divorce between only between the red and blue states. If I think she'd be quite happy to advocate for the divorce of at least one blue state. And
Yeah.
again, you're going, yeah. And then, so this we're in a very unique situation. If I'm running a campaign, in Wisconsin for a Democratic congressional candidate, my I already know before the campaign starts who my block of base voters are, who the block of voters are that I couldn't get if I gave each one of them $1 million like Elon Musk did. But there's that group in the middle. They're not necessarily centrist voters. But they're either irregular voters. They come out once every 6 years. Sometimes they vote for Democrats. Sometimes they vote for Republicans. Many times they don't vote. That's the group of people, and that group and the new voters that we're going to need, to get this accomplished. And I think we have a unique circumstance where we have messages that will appeal to Democrats. We have messages that will appeal to Republicans. Some of them are the same message. Many of them are the same message. And then if the signature campaign is successful in bringing out this crop of brand new voters and the irregular voters, like I said, I think that we have positioned ourselves not exclusively through our own efforts, but we've positioned ourselves right now to be not only politically viable but overall successful as well.
Next question, Lori. Is it going to be possible to get Calexit proposal for the November 2025 special election? Is she talking about the redistricting thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Thoughts, feelings on that?
Yeah, I don't think that's possible because it would have to come as a result of the gathering of signatures, and we're not there. So
Okay. Although we JJ pointed this out, if they do have a special session for redistricting, it's going to be because people are upset about a chaotic America, and that is exactly the right kind of audience to listen to Calexit messaging.
yeah, and when special sessions always have, you're called back to consider this item here, and there's always a catch-all phrase at the end, and any other lawful business the legislature can transact during that time.
Right,
So so I mean, if for example, a blue ribbon commission was appointed
right.
prior to that time, then at least the commission would be in place prior to the special election. That we're interested in gaining enough, getting up high enough on the ladder to where we end up atop Mount Everest. And at this point in time, every step, there are multiple things that could get us from one step to the next step. And the Blue Ribbon Commission is one. And but it is unlikely that the Calexit movement would be on the ballot at the special election, but not at all impossible to have it on the next election, the 26th election, which I think would be again very beneficial for us.
We're going to go to Mike. I'm interested in the movement and the group.
Wait, Mark,
Oh,
you missed one. That next question is very important. I look forward to future Calexit meetings. I wonder if we could partner and get more signs up at our rallies. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. So
yeah. We want to
let's
partner with anybody. If you know any group,
absolutely.
any organization that's willing to hang out with us, that's not something horrible like, I don't know, the white supremacist organization, then yes, we want to partner with them. So, and you can be Republican too. It's fine. Maybe not a
Yeah.
Trump supporter, but Mike, in what way do you believe I can be of assistance to joining Calexit? What are things that someone could do if they wanted to join Calexit? What sort of assistance?
Time and money, time and money, time and money. If
Yep.
you can make a contribution, if it's $3 or if it's Bernie's famous $27, that would be fantastic. And in terms of the actual hands-on participation, we're definitely going to be needing signature gatherers. Definitely going to be needing people who are going to go out and drum up support in a wide variety of ways that we haven't kind of revealed yet. But there are plenty. It'll take. I mean, it could take 100,000 total volunteers to pull this off. But with the Marines still in Los Angeles and coming back for the Olympics and so on down there, I mean, I think that there has never been a time when this kind of a movement could come in and be automatically perceived as viable. I mean,
Right.
during the Clinton years, when everybody was making $1 billion and everybody was happy and nobody was unemployed, et cetera, et cetera, hard to come into that and say, let's make some radical changes. Let's cut off somebody's arm, and it's but today the arm is being cut off by Washington. There, and all we have to do is point to the pool of blood underneath the arm, and there we are. I mean, again, everything being a matter of timing, there are going to be extraordinary opportunities presented through Calexit. I mean, find me a Californian who has living live brain cells that isn't interested in common sense gun control, that isn't interested in immigration reform, that isn't immigrants interested in universal health care. And the minute that person says, no, I'm not interested in any of those, boom, turn around, walk away. He's in that group that you're never going to get, if the Lord himself handed him the tablets, But the point I'm making is that the atmosphere is so true and so ready for what this organization has to offer that I think we will all, even on the inside, we will all be amazed when we really do hit the ground running at the outpouring of support that we get from people who had never even thought about participating in a campaign. And Mike, I thank you very, very much for expressing that interest. And believe me, there are I would say 100 ways that you could participate, but there are probably 1,000 in all honesty.
Okay. Shirley, can you address what has been discussed or is planned for a CA military if we secede? Would it be some sort of agreement with the U.S. beforehand so as to not start an invasion of other states?
Great question. And here's the answer. And it starts out with understanding that this is not as monumental a move as as most of us, or many of us, would presume at the outset. In terms of the negotiation, there a voluntary withdrawal, not voluntary, a mutual withdrawal, a mutual separation agreement would cover any and every matters. Whose money is going to be made acceptable in the current United States? Is California going to have its own money like the Brits had while they were members of the EU, or is everybody going to operate off of one currency? Issues relating to the military. There are military bases in California. There's military equipment in California, and all of those things are simply subject to negotiation. Would California prefer to keep those bases in place as they are and staff them with members of the California military? Yeah, we would. That comes at a cost. There'll be many, 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 many items that need to be considered over the course of these negotiations, and everyone has a cost and everyone has a benefit. So, in terms of the military bases, it is possible that we wouldn't want to pay anything to the United States for that equipment. They would take it back. They can't take the land back, so we would certainly have opportunities to come up with an agreement as to what happens on separation with respect to the land that the military bases sit on right now. But what's most important is that all of those things are resolvable. And we would end up, as a sovereign nation, we would certainly be eligible and the fourth largest economy in the world, we'd certainly be eligible to become a member of NATO. We would certainly we certainly have much bigger GDPs and much more in terms of what we have to offer to NATO than some of the NATO states already. On top of that,
Hmm.
we would certainly have a mutual defense pact with the United States of America. They would have a mutual defense pact with us, because if somebody was attacking the United States of America from the West, we would end up being the first line of defense in that situation. And so there would be benefit to the United States government, the continuing United States government, to not coming in and saying, we're taking all the planes, we're taking all the equipment, we're taking all the land. That's not in their best interest, because they still need us to be now their Western buffer. So I don't think that I don't think there's a single military question or issue that couldn't be resolved in the course of mutual negotiations over a voluntary separation.
Also, we are requesting permission to leave the United States. So California will have an internal vote. We'll need over 52% by the Brexit international standard. Once we do that, whether somebody will go to Congress and under the Texas versus White Supreme Court case, which is the only one on secession in U.S. history, which says you can't secede with consent to the states. We will ask for permission. We will get it, given as we've talked about, 48% of all Republicans view all Californians as un-American, and you can see the other acts that they've done towards us. Uh, Lastly, of just real quick, usually when there's a separation, if a state agrees, the group leaving agrees to take a portion of the debt, they usually get an equal portion of the military. So if you're leaving and you're like, the host country's like, you can't leave without taking 13% of the debt. And they go, fine, okay, I'll take percent, but I want 13% of the military. And that's just across the board 13, not you pick like I get 13% straight up. So America will probably demand that we leave with taking a portion of the debt, in which case we're internationally obligated to get stuff. The other thing is that America needs us badly. BRAC-based realignment and closure exposed the fact that the American military is heavily dependent upon California engineers and technology people. Turns out the American military is ran on jets and missiles and aircraft carriers and cyber systems and satellite warfare. All that requires tech. Most of those people come from here. So they're going to need us to retain their edge. And finally, California on its own, given the amount that it gives to the U.S. military, would be the third most funded, best funded military overnight, more than Russia. Jacob. Hello, Marcus and JJ. You have a lot of fans now. So just so that you know, okay? Um, how do you view the consequences of the ongoing race to gerrymander in terms of paving the way for future separation? JJ was already on this before it was all over. JJ, what's going on and how does it help us out?
It helps us every time another state suggests that they may undertake redistricting because again, we have come to accept instability as our norm since 2016. And what we have to do is remind people what stability looked like 10 years ago and 15 years ago and 20 years ago. And we have to bring that message out as well. Because, again, you're dealing with a crop of new voters, brand new voters, who have no idea what was going on in 2016 or 2010 or 2005. We have to paint a picture with our words. We have to paint a picture with our messages. And that picture is uh, here's what instability looks like. You know that because you've lived it. Here's what stability looks like and how we attain it. That's our message. And I think that the redistricting crisis, I'll call it a crisis, plays right into our hands because, again, as I said in the beginning, if you have political institutions, core political institutions that are necessary for the continuation of a viable democracy, and those core institutions are now attacking themselves. You got Newsom going after Governor Abbott. You had Newsom going after DeSantis. You have people who are in the same position in various parts of the country who should be collaborating on best practices to utilize in their states to provide to result in the greatest benefit to the greatest numbers within their state. But that's not what they're doing right now. The institutions are attacking one another. And when core institutions of a democracy begin to attack one another, that's the end of the democracy. So, in my mind, again, if we do nothing, we know how this movie ends. It ends at Civil War 2.0, and it ends with tens of millions of Americans dying. That's the specific reason why we need to step up, and we need to create an alternate ending. And the alternate ending is the peaceful separation of California from the United States.
Better at it than me, couldn't be happier. I always said I have my way of doing it, but we need a bunch of different people saying the same thing in their own different ways. And that if there's a better spokesperson, that person should come forward. It's about winning. And if you have the right way of saying it and being, and that gets people to go right to, yeah, okay, let's talk seriously, then great. This is what we need to be doing. Um, Although I am the one that brought him in because, I'm smart enough to do that, but we're going to stand on his shoulders. I'm going to take the next question,
Mhm.
just so we can move on. How do we know
Sure.
that Joey says, how do we know the site for donations is secure? Great question. If you go to Calexit now and you click the donate button, it will take you to the GoFundMe or Patreon page. So those are legit, definitely on GoFundMe and Patreon. That means they're totally legit. Those sites are kosher. All right, Melissa, this is for you. My friends and myself, what happens to Social Security? And is Gavin Newsom supporting this? What would you say?
I would say that Gavin Newsom can't publicly come out at this point in time and say that he supports the movement,
Why
uh,
not?
because he's already announced that he wants to be president of the country we're trying to get out of.
What?
So,
Oh,
but the bottom line here is that even in the case of Gavin Newsom, politicians are overtly transparent. If the next Gallup poll showed a 59% support rate for Calexit, uh, Gavin Newsom is a Calexit fan immediately. Now, it still may be behind the scenes, but again, no candidate seeing 59 plus percent support in a single issue advocacy campaign, no candidate in their right mind is going to say, "Hey, I don't want to be a part of that." The question is not, does he want to be a part? Does he not want to be a part at that point? The question is, how public does he want his part to be?
right there.
And it would be fantastic if he would come out and do that. But if he were to do that, it would be as if he were saying, I no longer desire to be president of the United States. I desire to be president of the sovereign nation of California.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt is attributed with coming up with the New Deal. That's completely false. A group of activists told him about something that would eventually be called the New Deal. They told him before it was implemented. He said, "Great, I love the plan. Now make me do it." What he meant was not that he was hostile, but you need to get out there, drum up public support. Then I can come forward and support it, and I'll be seen as a great president, and it'll be easy to get it passed. He literally told them how the sausage factory works. You got to get support out there, and then they'll come forward. Now, most people don't know that. They think it was FDR's thing because he acted like that after it already had public support. So it's the way the game's played.
And Marcus, on the Social Security question,
Yeah.
Social Security, I mean, there is an obligation that is ongoing. We would propose, we would be proposing that California residents maintain dual citizenship in both California and in the
Mhm.
United States, so there'd be no impact at all on Social Security. Those payments would be ongoing and continuing, but again, that is also a subject of negotiation. But it's a premium topic at the negotiating table because it's of greatest interest to many, many Californians. I would be one of them in that same category. I'm 70 years old, and but I think that there is absolutely one should have absolutely no fear whatsoever of being unable to collect their Social Security at that point.
Um, Brad, is there any discussion about constitutional red lines where there are lines that we can say, hey, if you do this, Trump's America, you broke into the Constitution, and therefore we don't have to have any commitment to the Union because you violated the Constitution, so therefore the Constitution clearly doesn't matter anymore. Is there any constitutional red lines that have been crossed or that you could see that might be crossed that could cause that to happen to the California understanding?
Really, one circumstance and one circumstance alone, and that would be, hypothetically speaking, we draw a 70-30 margin in an election, and the governor at that point stands up and says, "Hey, we're out. We voted. We're out." Well, that would be a constitutional red line because you'd be right in court back to Texas versus White again. So I think that uh, all of us, there are no things that I can contemplate at the moment that would put us in a position where we were being looked at by Pam Bondi. But I think that I think we're in a situation where the only thing at this particular moment in our history, at this particular moment in our lives, the two things that stand in our way are time and money, time and money, time and money. That's it.
Mhm.
We have the message. We have the message that people will be receptive to. We have the message that will bring new voters in. We have the message that will bring passive voters out again. all of the messaging is on our side. The other side is not going to be able to come in and put out a TV commercial showing the Marines in LA and say, "Isn't this a great thing?" It's so you have to look at the messaging and the counter messaging. Our messaging, if California doesn't have to pay an 82 billion dollar surplus every year over to Washington over what we get back, you have universal health care for the first time on the North American continent, other than Canada. But you have universal health care. The path to universal health care goes through Calexit. If Calexit is successful, you'll have common sense gun control. Is the other side going to be able to come out and say, we're really into shooting up third grade classrooms, so please don't give us any common sense gun control. You're not going to have that. So my point is that we would be able, with the $82 billion that we would save on an annual basis, we'd be able to provide free college. We would be able to have universal health care. We'd be able to have a $20 an hour minimum wage. It would be, for the first time, it would be equity and justice for all Californians, not just for some, like it is around the country now. It's equity and justice for some, but not for a whole hell of a lot. And that's we're in the same situation right here. So I think that we're on rock solid ground. We've got the message, we've got the people, we've got all the things we need, except what every candidate and every cause doesn't have enough of ever: time and money, time and money, time and money. So
I'll point it out. Kamala Harris campaign, same thing, time and money, and she had a billion, and she had
yeah,
all the expertness. So, I'm guessing, but I think this maybe is there something that Trump could do or to the Republicans that would be so egregious and so blatantly on the surface of the face, violating the Constitution, that I guess hypothetically the governor and the legislature would go, wow, that was just so over the top that the union's over because you can't do that's so unconstitutional, you can't do that.
yeah. Unfortunately, with the combination of the added immunity that's been given over to this president by the Supreme Court, and also just the myth of American exceptionalism, they all stand in the way. But there's nothing that Trump could do against California, unless, of course, the governor saw a 70-30 vote and went out on the steps of the Capitol and said, "I'm declaring California to be a sovereign nation." You can't do that. That's Texas v. White all over again. But in this particular case, um, there's nothing that he can really do to shorten our time period, with the limited exception of agreeing that he he would also love to get California out of the United States. And if he wanted that, if he went on board with that, what he would simply do, he'd be doing the same thing that he did in trying to get the big ugly bill passed. He'd be calling around, or his minions would be calling around to all of the elected officials and saying, "Hey, this is what I want. Do it." If it were the case that he would say, "You know what? I don't care how much money California sends to us. I don't care what the situation is there. I don't care about California. It doesn't care about me." He could easily pick the phone up, call Marjorie Taylor Greene and representatives from the rest of the state delegations in Congress, and simply say, "Hey, look, uh, do this in memory of me." I shouldn't. I may get struck down dead for that. But the point being, he could end up becoming an even more strange bedfellow in the end if he lets his ego stay in control of his actions, and he says, "I'm better off not having to worry about California and their fires and their earthquakes and their this and their that and their wokeness and their DEI." He could very easily do that. And I'm not saying that we're counting on that, because I'm not. What I'm counting on is for him to come in, and after a successful electoral victory. I'm looking for Trump to come in and say, essentially, uh, "Let's make a deal." And
Yeah.
he's probably going to want, yeah, he's probably going to want to California to take a bigger piece of the debt than our percentage of population, would relate to. He probably will want some premium price for public lands, probably want some premium price for something else. And would there be, would those negotiations all come into play at that point in time? Yeah, they would. And and again, Marcus, I had two people yesterday that I was talking to from other states who said, if I move to California now, will I be able to vote in the Calexit election?
Yeah,
So we're
that's so
so
awesome.
we're going to be drawing people in, and the more of that happens, the more things that Trump can see that show him that getting rid of California somehow benefits him, the easier it's going to be to get out of the Beltway for the delegation that goes to Washington.
I'll just add, and I don't want to drill down on it.
Yeah,
Well, first, Marjorie Taylor Greene did back this national divorce.
yeah.
We at Calexit invented that term first a few years ago. So we like to point out it was us liberals, not conservatives, who started that. She picked it up from us. She also specifically mentioned the Calexit initiative a few months ago and said it should be supported because it backs up her plan. Um, I don't want to go down this narrative. I'll just point out that um, the Revolutionary War that made America separate from England may never have happened without the occurrence of something called the Boston Massacre. So there were a lot of revolutionary people who were fighting the British, but there were a lot who weren't. Some famous revolutionary founding fathers who never joined the American Revolution until after the Boston Massacre because they just thought, okay, there's some skirmishes, but that's bad. It wasn't until the English crown just gunned down people in public that things changed. I also point out Amritsar in India, same thing. The British government gunned down about 1,500 people that pushed for Indian independence there. I'd also point out something called Bleeding Kansas. It's not well recognized by the Civil War, but the Civil War didn't just occur. People were prepared for it. The North and the South were reading newspaper reports about a place called Kansas, where Southerners and Northerners were executing each other for 10 years. And so for 10 years, you had these newspaper reports in the South and the North showing Americans killing other Americans and being fine about that. It was after
Mhm.
10 years of hearing that the Civil War actually occurred first at Bull Run. So what happens when we have something like Unite the Right? Thousands of people come out in one night. Nobody ever saw that coming. Um, so how do we know that an event like Bleeding Kansas doesn't happen in one night or with just 2 weeks of internet coordination, whereas it took 10 years last time, right? This isn't print. This isn't that you had to have horses and telegraphs. Now it's, I mean, besides Unite the Right, there was the shooting where that kid got off for going to another place and shooting people at a Black Lives Matter rally. I mean, that almost turned into riots. So what about George Floyd, where you're watching this snuff film on TV? That almost turned
Yeah.
into riots. So how do we know that something like Bleeding Kansas takes, what, 2 weeks to play out now instead of 10 years? And how do we know that doesn't turn into the same push as the Boston Massacre happened? Or Amritsar. There's many other events. There was gunning down of protesters in Russia that kind of pushed the same thing. The Talib Square, I believe, in a small Islamic country, was one guy got harassed by the police and got roughed up, and then the whole country revolted against the country. There's also Sri Lanka, where it was basically a bad afternoon, and they revolted against the country. Anyways, let's move on here. Um, And I'll point out you have the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who said, I will not answer the question when asked, will you gun down protesters if given the order? So that's still out there, and nobody in the Republican Party said there's a problem with that. Here we go. Last questions from Lynn. Where do I find information about the viability of exiting? There must be studies, but I do not know where to find them. And then we'll get to the second question. I only know of one study. Do you know of other studies on secession?
There haven't been much within the recent memory because it's just been seen as a not viable option. So researchers they want to look into things where the validation of their theory will actually be able to be put into play or could be put into play. But see, so you don't have a lot of that research here. There are a number of theoretical, I wouldn't say studies, but theoretical papers, concept papers, but not a lot on the viability of exiting because nobody's ever tried, since the Civil War. So at this point in time, we're blazing a new trail, and under these circumstances, under all of these circumstances, I'm particularly happy to be on the trail at this time. There are also no one would even consider doing a research study related to secession or separation in very, very good times. In bad times, now you're going to get a lot of people who are looking at okay, what happens next? I've said this, for the last 10 years. The American experiment is over. It's irretrievably broken. And the more time that we spend right now trying to fix something that we know can't be fixed, the less time we have to determine our own fate in the next chapter. We need to stop trying to fix something that's so broken that it can't be fixed. And we need to start looking at what happens. How do we transition into the next chapter? Do we do it peacefully or do we do it violently? There's only two ways that this chapter ends. One is peacefully and one is violently. And I choose the peaceful method, and the peaceful method involves all of the things that we're doing now, and getting that delegation on board, getting them to Washington, and hopefully resolving everything in reasonably short order, and without the need for any further bloodshed.
Uh, I've only seen one study, so totally backing up what you're saying. Nobody looks into this. Nobody took it seriously. It's not really seen as a viable option, although we know that it happens. I mean, the Soviet Union did this straight up.
Okay.
There's also other places. Denmark's looking at a vote. Catalonia tried to vote. Um, there's also part Scotland has had votes, so it's not like it can't be done. The only study I'm aware of is by Robert Young. That's Robert Young from University of Western Ontario, 1994. Robert Young, Western Ontario, 1994. It's called "How Do Peaceful Secessions Happen?" It's by the Political Economy Research Group, Western Ontario, Canada. And basically, what they say is negotiations happen fast. Negotiations about secession, when they're done peacefully, are normally not protracted for this reason. So, violent secession, yeah, it's whatever. Peaceful secession means there was an agreed upon vote. Okay, we agreed we're going to have a vote. Um, Politicians have to get reelected. So, if there's agreed upon vote and you don't do it, you're not going to be reelected. That's what they said in 1994. So they said usually for peaceful, meaning everybody agreed, it's about 2 to 4 years, quick, because
And
there's
the
another election.
and the advantage in dealing with Donald Trump in this fashion, if we were able to deal with Donald Trump, is that it, Mr. Trump never goes into any negotiation with a plan. He goes into every negotiation with, how do I make a deal? Can we make a deal? Let's make a deal. Let's get a deal done, because he wants to run out to the cameras and announce that, oh, we got a deal, we got a deal, we got a deal done. Because he thinks that's what makes a good deal. If into his mind, a quick deal is always a good deal. Because then he can move his little mind on to the next thing and worry about the next thing. So were we able to get this moved forward with Trump still in office, I think that there's an excellent chance of him telling his delegation who would be with him, I don't care how this comes out, as long as there's a deal in place, so that I can go advertise that there's a deal in place. If this was a different administration, I mean, if you were dealing with a Chris Murphy or a Sheldon Whitehouse, or someone else in the White House at that point, have Sheldon Whitehouse in the White House. How about that? But in any case, if we were dealing with a different person, a different group of people, yeah, you could say, hey, look, we're going to analyze this to death. We'll have our first meeting about 12 months from now, and then we'll start working on a package to release. That's not Trump's not that way. Trump is okay. They voted for it. They get let them. We'll give them what they asked for. Get them out of here now, because that's just the way he conducts business. And so, if we're able to move this along to the point where there's a vote before Trump leaves office, I think we'll be able to pull it off.
Me, our computer's a little slow. Okay, totally agree. By the way, want to back up that this study in 1994 by Robert Young, How Does Peaceful Secession Happen, Western University, Ontario, was completely backed up by the Brexit debacle around 2017. So Brexit happened within 2 to 4 years. It had to. Boris Johnson was prime minister who oversaw the successful implementation of Brexit. He still has a political career. There's another person called Theresa May. She's been politically ruined by Brexit, largely because she was seen as playing games. People were not happy. They didn't think that she was taking it seriously. And so She came in and they said, okay, you're going to run Brexit. Um, and then she didn't actually do it. And then now her career's over and she was ruined. Which basically backs up what this article was saying, that you have to do what these peaceful negotiations say, or you're going to be ruined. And so it's in 2 to 4 years. Last question from Lynn. My legislators aren't really helping me out with this. I'm talking to them about the blue ribbon panel. What do I do?
I think you just have to, in the first instance, recognize that uh, it would be an extraordinarily bold step right now for anybody other than a seasoned legislator in an extraordinarily safe district. It'd be very, very rare for anyone other than that to come out and give vocal support today. Now, I add to that the understanding that if the Marines come back again to another part of California, if the National Guard is called out over the governor's objection, if there's more and more if there's more and more violence associated with disrupting the protests associated with either immigration or redistricting or no kings or anything else, all of these things come to benefit us. And as I said before, as long as the polls are not including a Calexit question in them, there's no reason for an elected legislator to look at that and say, "Well, sure, I'm just going to jump on board with this enterprise that can't even muster up enough support to get a question on a Gallup poll." I think I told Marcus, I don't know if this was at a meeting or not, but when those legislators begin to see in their own internal polling, when they begin to see Calexit responses when there isn't even a Calexit question on their poll, or if they put a Calexit question on their poll just to gauge support internally. When those things begin to happen, when the elected official begins to see, hey, I'm not talking about this issue. I'm not talking to anybody who's talking about this issue, but the people are talking. The people who are going to vote for me are talking about this issue. That's when the politicians are going to come around, because in the end, I strongly believe that politicians will be seeking our endorsement as much as we're seeking their endorsement once all of these other factors come into play and we can be seen as politically viable. Yeah, I'm not surprised that most elected officials right now would take a wait and see posture. But the minute that they see a 48, 50, 52, 55% support rate on a Gallup poll, they'll be the ones calling you, Lynn. You won't have to call them ever again.
We got one last question in. Somebody snuck it in. I told them you can only email us, so they emailed us the question. Now, typically I don't do this. We do it for the next show, but Gabriel, because you got the question in and you played by the rules, thank you. Gabriel says, "What will the future California use for money?" He suggests gold or silver. What do you think? This will be the
I
last
think that
question.
yeah, I think that we could certainly there could certainly be a California currency, and what it would be backed by. I'm guessing that the first president of the sovereign nation of California would consult with his own financial advisors and his finance team to determine the best course of action in that regard. But let me put it say it that it would we could continue to function, and obviously there would be a transition period where we would be functioning using U.S. dollars. There are other countries that use U.S. dollars. We could as the medium of exchange, and we could certainly continue that, or we could make the break fully and completely and issue new currency. And again, what would it be backed by? It would be backed by whatever the first president of California and his team make that determination. But so we can't go into this campaign saying, and by the way, we're going to have a gold-backed currency, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to be something that I'm sure citizen input would be taken and received, but that would be within the province of the first president and his Secretary of Treasury, I'm sure.
I'll just point out that California is the world's fourth largest economy. A large thing that makes your currency work is that other people want your currency or to use it, and we could definitely do that. So we already have the
Yeah.
ability to have debt, uh, and have credit from other countries, and that's key for that. So we have wherever this goes, that's a good position to start from, right, Professor?
Yeah, and by the way, we would have the same. We would be basically caused to have the same trade deals with the remaining United
Yeah,
States that we had that the United States has with any other country. You know,
yep.
we're a country now. We're free to engage in trade policy to whatever design we believe to be the most efficient and most effective. You know, for the sovereign nation of California. We wouldn't have to worry about, well, who's going to buy our things, or who are we going to sell to, or what are we going to what about import duties from the United States? Can you now bring fruit into California for the first time, or do we still want to check your fruit at the border? I mean, all of these administrative decisions and these administrative determinations, they would be part and parcel of any new forming nation. And all of us, all those people who are here at these meetings and who that will come to work in some capacity for the advocacy campaign, we are. You have to understand this. It's such a bigger deal than most people would be able to contemplate at the outset. I mean, what we're doing is we are forming a new nation. And what do you call the people who form a new nation? You call them founding fathers. So everybody associated with this movement, your legacy will be that you were a founding father in the formation of the sovereign nation of California. And if that's not enough to get somebody pumped up, I mean, it certainly has me excited because I think that it gives us the opportunity to learn from the nastiness that has occurred and to move forward from that. I just can't tell you uh, how great I feel about this because if you look at the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Constitution was signed in 1787 at a time when the nation was less than 4 million people, all located on the East Coast. In fact, the signers of the Constitution and signers of the Declaration of Independence, they really didn't even know where the land ended. They didn't know where the Pacific Ocean was. And so they were making decisions that were uniquely applied to the 3.5+ million people that were all on the eastern seaboard. And you have to add to that the fact that the drafters of the Constitution were the people were the people all the people that were allowed to vote in those days. And who were they? Old white men who owned property. And that was it. So if I'm selling my house, you want to buy my house, the first thing I want to do is draft the contract because the person who drafts the contract wins in 99% of negotiations. And in this particular case, this contract, the Constitution, was drafted by white men who owned property for the benefit of who? White men who owned property. It took the Civil War to get the vote for African American men, but African American women had to wait another 60 years, 50 plus years.
Women
Same thing
invented.
as yeah, same thing as the wives of the people who signed the Constitution. That they couldn't have a word in it. They couldn't vote. They couldn't vote until the 1920s. So the situation right now, is that we have the ability to look at all of the things that went wrong in the document that was, first of all, drafted at a time when the United States was the least diverse nation on earth. Now we're the most diverse nation on earth. You can't apply one document to the situation and circumstances that you're experiencing. But in California, we have a different opportunity. We have a different opportunity to learn from all the mistakes and then take whatever good pieces there might be from Washington and bring that to California and craft a document that applies to the most diverse set of people on earth. It's such a great opportunity, and it's such a great opportunity to actually become what the founding fathers of the United States thought they wanted, but they really didn't want because they only wanted it for white men who own money or own property, rather. So
Good point. We'll leave it there. We
yeah,
need your support. We need your help. We need your donations. So email me, Marcus at calexitnow.org. You can ask questions if you want to get involved. If you want to work with JJ, like many people have done, email me. Also, questions for the next show. We'll announce some more shows. Additionally, go to calexitnow.org. The donate button is in the top right. It will take you right to our two different funding sources, which are legit and we could really use the help. We have a tour coming for coming up to promote Calexit. We have a 50 million person influencer event. We have a pack being launched, a pack commercial coming, a pack website. We have an app for you to participate with Calexit, a film fest coming. And we are starting to lobby with politicians, and we're working on getting money collected to hire signature gatherers.
One other point too. If you are a supporter of this movement and you're on social media, tag all of your posts. Hashtag Calexit now.
Yeah.
Tag all of your posts because
Yeah.
if it does nothing else, it just continues to pump the word out there more and more and more and more and more. If you're sending personal emails, I won't say do it on your corporate email, but if you're sending personal emails out to people, tag them all. Hashtag Calexit now. The more people that see that, the more people think about it. And the more that they think about it, the more they'll understand that the only path to all these things that we know they want is through Calexit.
Also, we're looking for social media amplifiers. If you want to be a social media amplifier, helping to share the Calexit messages, again, Marcus at Calexit Now. If you have questions for JJ, email me. I'll make sure to get them to JJ. If anybody wants to talk to him directly, I'll hook you up. We'll leave it there. Silent Mike, could we end the recording? And we'll end the meeting. We'll give it a second for Silent Mike.